Number 15. A New York City man killed his entire family and then went to work like nothing happened. A New York City man named William Bonin was arrested for the deaths of 5 young men in 1971. He took them back to his apartment where he tied their hands behind their backs and then beat them to death with a baseball bat. Afterward, he placed the bodies into plastic barrels with gasoline poured on top of them. Then he set fire to the house as he walked out the door. The police found him at his job later that day. Number 14. During World War I, American soldiers were taken prisoner by Nazi SS officers during the Battle of Normandy. Many of them died from being tortured or beaten to death. One soldier survived because he was able to escape. Number 13. In 1954, a boy who had been playing outside discovered an old man dead in his backyard. He called his mother and she came out to see what was wrong. When they looked closer, it appeared that the man had been shot through the eyes. His skull was shattered as if someone had hit him over the head with a brick. Number 12. 1983. A woman was driving along when she saw a car run a red light. She followed the car until she caught up to a truck driver who was working on a bridge. The truck driver told her that he didn't know anything about it and wouldn't talk to her further. As she started to drive away, the man in the truck pulled up beside her with a large gun pointed at her head. Number 11. In 1926, a man named Edgar Mitchell, the 6th person to walk on the moon, became lost while hiking in the woods near his home. He was bitten by a poisonous snake and began to bleed heavily. His wife heard the screams and rushed to find him. When she arrived, she found him in the middle of the path covered in blood. She tried to help him but soon passed out. She awoke hours later in her own bed with no memory of how she got there. Number 10. In 1857, a group of 7 men from Illinois traveled to Oregon to search for gold. They had just reached the headwaters of the Rogue River in Josephine County when they decided to camp for the night and continue their journey early the following morning. That night, they were visited by a strange creature that attacked them all. 2 of the men managed to get away and flee into the forest, but 3 others were killed instantly. The last 2 victims were stabbed so savagely that they could not be identified. Number 9. In 1986, a man named Herbert Snorrison was traveling along a road in Iceland when he saw an object flying through the air. He followed it and eventually realized that it was a human body. At first, he thought that it was a naked woman wearing wings. However, the wings weren't attached to her arms or chest. Instead, they floated down from above and rested against her back. Her limbs hung limp and lifeless. Number 8. A couple was enjoying their vacation when they stopped at the famous Hotel California located in Los Angeles. While they were inside, they heard a loud noise that sounded like glass breaking. They ran outside and found a man lying unconscious on the ground. He had cuts to his face and the front of his shirt was ripped open. They took him inside and tended to him as best they could. Number 7. During the Korean War, a platoon of American soldiers entered a dark tunnel that led deeper into enemy territory. While they were making their way through the cave-like structure, one of them noticed something strange hanging off to the side. It was an orange glow coming from a small hole in the wall. As they moved closer, they noticed that the source of the light was a tiny figure standing next to a wooden table. The room was completely bare except for a single chair and a wooden bowl filled with water. Number 6. In 1981, a man was walking his dog in the woods when he suddenly became aware of a presence in the area. He turned around to see a ghostly figure approaching him. The apparition was made entirely of black smoke. It stepped forward and spoke to the man. It said that it would grant him one wish, and the only requirement was that he must never tell anyone about his encounter. Number 5. In 1775, British troops were fighting the Patriots at Bunker Hill. They were doing everything possible to hold the hill, but they couldn't seem to pull it off. One of the soldiers had a dream that night and woke up with a new idea. He wrote it down on a piece of paper and carried it with him. The next morning, he gave the note to his commanding officer. He told him that if he could reach the top of the hill without being shot, he would give him a reward. Number 4. In 1884, a team of miners were digging deep beneath the earth. Suddenly, they heard a massive explosion that sent rocks flying through the air. They thought that it might have been caused by a cave-in. Once the dust cleared, they saw that it wasn't a cave-in at all. They were staring at the charred remains of a massive black iron ball. Number 3. In the 1800s, a group of men were searching for a lost gold mine in Virginia. They were going through the woods when they stumbled upon a huge white bird perched upon a rock. The creature took flight and flew away. They followed its path and found a cave entrance that led down into a large cavern. Number 2. In 1943, a marine patrol was patrolling the shores of the Pacific Ocean. Their ship was damaged in a storm and they needed to return to base. They set out in search of safe harbor and quickly spotted a small island. The captain ordered his crew to drop anchor and prepare for evacuation. Once they reached land, they discovered that the island was inhabited by a tribe of natives. They were friendly and offered to give them shelter for the night. The Marines accepted and spent the evening eating, drinking, and socializing with their hosts. They also asked some of them questions about life on the island, but most of their answers were vague and unhelpful. Number 1. In 1646, a man named Peter Blood was born in London. He grew up to become a royal spy and was assigned to the king's personal guard. On one occasion, he was in the castle tower when he noticed a beautiful woman standing in the window. She gazed out at him and smiled. He watched her for a moment before returning to the king. Later, the woman disappeared from the tower.